Astrotheology thing, I need to explain a couple of things just so that we can grasp the idea of how cycles work and how cycles can be broken down and how they can be used. So when you look at a circle, geometrically, it's a 360 degree thing, and that can be split into as many sort of sections as you want, but we tend to use what is known as a sexageminal system when it comes to time and geographic locations and space. So this thing is divided, if you divide it into 12, which is the thing that we tend to do most, we've got 12 months, we've got 12 hours, these kind of things. So in a 360 degree circle, divided by 12, you will have a 30 degree arc between there and there. Now, same thing will happen for the second hand. That 5 minute position, or that 5 second position, will do a 30 degree arc. 5 minutes will do a 30 degree arc. 1 hour will have a 30 degree arc. And when you superimpose it onto the year, then each month will have a 30 degree arc. Now, the reason I'm talking about arcs is because we need to understand how arcs work in time and how things can be twisted and changed in language. So now that we've seen that actually works out to 30 degrees, I've proposed that we have cycles, or astronomical cycle, of 3 30 degrees. So let's put this another way. In the year, we have 4 seasons. In the Platonic year, or what's called as the Great Year, which is the processional year, each one of those months or periods will last, you've got a month, here you've got 2, 1, 6. So 2,160 years is the same 30 degree arc as what you're having up here. So before I go any further, are you grasping what I'm saying here, how something can be used in a different way, but it's showing the same kind of thing?
So what's the full circle represent when the 30 degree arc is 2,160 years?
Well, the full circle would be 25,920
But
years.
does that, like a year or
No.
a day, have a...
No. In astronomy, we have a cycle called the precession of the equinox. And the precession of the equinox is a 25,920 year cycle.
Precession.
Yeah. So that's what that precessional cycle is. And that's where it appears that the sun goes round each sign of the zodiac for that period. Now,
can I just interject? So when you say between 12 and 2, we have the whole complete cycle of 1,160 degrees, or the whole
360.
Right, 360.
Yeah, because it's always a circle. It's the cycle of time, basically, and this is why I want to emphasise this, because we use cyclical time. Time isn't linear in that sense of how it's used in the everyday world. Everything is cyclical in that sense. So, on the biggest scale, you have these 4 seasons over this period. Each one of these seasons is 6,480 years. And these are known as worlds. In religious, metaphysical kind of concepts, this period is known as a world. So when the Bible talks about the world being 6,000 years old, in this sense, this way, it's pretty much correct in that it's divided into these periods. So we have the Trinity of Creator, Preserver, and Destroyer. So each one of these worlds is broken down into these 3 periods. So in the first one, you'll have a creator God. So if you look at Christianity, because I want to contain it down into this, into a 2,000 year period in a minute, but just to get the overall larger scale of it, the creator God is brought in. So if we look at Christianity, you'll see that the Old Testament is the old God, it's the creator God. Then we have a new covenant, and now we've gone from the time of the creator now to the time of the preserver or the saviour. And so in this period now, we're in the period of the saviour, which is Jesus. And we have things like salvation and saviour and things, and salvation comes from sal, which is salt. And salt is also a preserver. There's all these things that tie in to emphasise what's being said. And then after that period, we have the period of the destroyer. Now, I postulate that this started at the end of the Lower Dryas period. So this happened between 11.5 and 9,500 years BC, when civilization started up again after possible a couple of meteor strikes in the period of Leo, which would have been 13.5 to 11,500 years of BC. So there was a cataclysm here, and then society took a few thousand years, but it started to grow up. You can see that with the Sales Valley culture in northern India, and as that declined, then this concept came away. So, but this begins in India. It's Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. And so that first appeared at this time. So that would have been in the time of Cancer, in the time of Gemini, and the time of Taurus. And Taurus was the last destroyer period that we went through.
So is that 2160? Is that how long it takes to go through one?
One sign, yeah. So that's basically 1 month.
That's what I meant.
Now, what I'm going to do is go to this period here, just one 2,000 year period, what we're in now, and show how this creator, preserver, destroyer can then be broken down within the period of a new religion where it's created, it's preserved, and then it's destroyed to make way for the next religion coming in the next 2,000 year period. So the overall part of the cycle, we're in the preserver, but that preserver period is broken down again into three.
So just before you go into this, Pete, I'm just trying to get the chronological sequence. So you're saying at 3 o'clock on your chart is 11,500 BC, yeah?
Yeah, because that will work.
Right, so...
No, I think 12 o'clock in his chart is 11,000.
No, it would be here, because it's looking at the correlation of particular themes and gods at particular times.
Right.
And what it would be, the reason you have Cancer here, because in the beginning the creator was done in the image of Zeus. So that was the theme they used. Now, Cancer is ruled by the moon, but Jupiter is exalted. Because I think if we're supposed to be in the Dark Age, in the Iron Age.
Right.
When you look at the cycle of the Golden Age and stuff, you've got the Golden Age at the top, descends into the Silver Age, into the Bronze Age. It sits here in the Iron Age at the bottom. And on a seasonal kind of thing, this represents summer, fall, winter, spring. So when we pass through this period, metaphorically speaking, we're passing through hell.
Right. And
because hell and darkness and things, these were our first enemy. These things, this is why these things are so ingrained. And it's to do with the part of the year we're in.
So, at the risk of being a bit pedantic, so we've done the first quarter, which has taken 6,480 years.
Yeah, up to so this would be
the end
Taurus.
of Taurus.
Then we had Aries.
Right.
Now we're in Pisces.
Right.
And then
we're about to go into
Aquarius.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah, well, this is why I tried to want to do it in this manner, so
right.
it sort of You can see the correlations, hopefully. So, but this isn't how you would see it as like a yearly zodiac chart.
Right.
It would be, you'd have Aries over here
Right.
on the spring equinox. So this would be the 6 days of creation.
Right.
The reason a clock doesn't go this way is because on the sundials, when the sun comes up over here in the east, it casts a shadow in the west.
Right.
And that shadow is what's followed round, and that's why you have the hands
Right.
go round in clockwise motions, because it's to do with that, the shadow. So it doesn't, even though the clock hands are going from west to east, the sun is going from east to west. So Aries will be here, so that this is the 6 days of creation, because it's life. That's what creation is always referred to. It's from spring to autumn. The day of rest, and then there was a theme in Celtic thing where they spoke about the 5 days at the end of the year were known as the 5 dead days.
Right.
And I think when you look at these 12 as days, so you've got the 6 days of creation, day of rest, and then you've got 5 dead days. So the 5 dead days are late autumn and winter, when everything's died back and stuff like that. Because some of it's very literal, but it's been sexed up to make it look more than it actually is, to deceive. So we're in this period here, so we're going to look at this as, again, we've got to break that down into create a preserve and destroyer.
So that's within each sign.
Yeah, yes, that will be within each sign. If you look at the zodiac chart, you can get, within the degrees, you can have something called decans, which are tens, which is, you have cardinal points, you have decans,
Yeah.
the same as in the church. So when we moved into Pisces is a bit of a funny subject, because different groups will claim different points. Now, I've looked at a few different versions, and I kind of go along with the Manly P. Hall. We moved into the age of Pisces on 325 AD, which was when Constantine brought Christianity into the fold and gave it political positions. Because when you work out from that period, because it's a new god, it's newly created, it has to get in and establish itself. And so between 325 and 1065, after that period you start getting a lot of papal bulls and things like that, establishing its position, preserving its position. From 1765 is interesting, because the destroyer phase kind of lines up with this whole destroyer aspect or destructive aspect of revolutionary faith. And so when I'm looking at these periods, I'm actually seeing this being played out on this smaller scale. Because when this is created and it's preserved, it's through the preservation that naturally leads to the destruction. Because the preservation of the period means we get more involved in commerce and trade and plunder. And the more we plunder, the more we exploit. That to me is interesting. There is another weird correlation here as well. In the astrological side of things, the sign Pisces is ruled anciently by Jupiter, and modern astrologers sort of put their claim on Neptune. So the whole sign is ruled by that, but then each one of these is sub-ruled. So the first decan tends to be ruled by the actual main two signs that actually rule it. The second sign is then the next, Pisces is a water sign, so it would be the next water sign along, which would be Cancer. And then the one after that would be Scorpio. Because this is going backwards, it would be...
This is where I get lost, is where you start swapping across the zodiac.
It's not swapping across, it's swapping from a yearly cycle, which is that way,
to the
large cycle, which is clockwise. Because we spin anti-clockwise. and we go round the sun anti-clockwise. But the sun appears to go through the zodiac clockwise. Now, because we are in one direction, it's claimed that the sun moves backwards. And it does appear to us to move backwards, but it's actually clockwise. It moves. Astronomers and astrologers will both do their nut at that term. They do not like using that term. But I think it's important to use the term because we need to understand how it's used as time management. This is what manages the world, is the use of this. It creates all the metaphors and all the symbols and everything for the period of the time we're in. Or that's how I see it anyway. As I think I'm not saying that this is true or anything like that. This is just my observations, my studies, and I'm just offering it basically. So this is why the world runs, I think, how it does. So everything that's going on, the money system, institutions, the things are set up to follow this pattern, and it happens every 2,000 years. And when you look at the end of an age and the beginning of an age, previous age is always wiped out or tried to be destroyed, or something happens. It's, like when Moses comes down and they're all worshipping the golden calf. Well, they're in the time of Aries. They're going back to the old God, because now it's the time of the ram, it's not the time of the bull. And so it was go through your camp and slaughter this and that and whatever. So they did that. When you get to here, Aries, at the end of Aries, towards the end of Aries, and then like in a couple of hundred years into Pisces, you get that whole period with the Alexandrian Library. There's a few fires earlier, then it's sacked by different people. I think 400 and something was the last time it was.
So you're talking about Aries starting at 325?
No. Aries ended at 325.
325, right. Gotcha.
Pisces started at 325.
Right.
So, as I say, yet again, you can't be 100% definite on these, but you need to look at certain things. And this is the other thing I was going to say about this date of 1765. Within a couple of years of that, just before, the Queen's coronation coach, what she uses now, was built.
Right.
On the front of that coach, as we come into the decan of Jupiter, she has a coach built and it's got Jupiter on the front and it's got the Tritons on the back. And the Tritons are, if I'm remembering right, are the sons of Poseidon. And so Neptune represents as well, Neptune is Poseidon, it's just a Roman name for him. The Tritons are associated there. So when we move in astronomically to the decan of Zeus and Poseidon, the coronation coach gets built with an image of Zeus and Poseidon on the thing. So this is just one other little aspect. And just to go on there a little bit more controversially, in the Queen's coronation speech, or in the coronation speech, there is a section where she will keep faith and follow the true profession of the Gospels. That to me is a really interesting thing, because these points, these zodiac points, the equinoxes and the things, another name for them is the Gospels. Now, the true profession of the Gospel, when we're talking of procession and precession, one moves forwards clockwise, one moves backwards anti-clockwise. This, even though it moves clockwise, it's known as precession. In the time that was written, we have something in our language called the long S.
That was an S, yeah. Like in German.
Yeah. So the long S always represents the C sound in a thing. So when I see the true profession of the Gospels, I actually see it as the true procession of the Gospels, and which is talking about this.
Yeah.
And it's all, this is how I mean it's all linked in. We could get in, I'm probably not going to get into the chance to do it now, but how the Templar, so the word temple, for example, temple, tem, as Pi root means to cut. PLE is a multiplicative suffix, but in numbers it only ever applies to 3, because if you have triple, then you have quadruple, sextuple, and it becomes a tuple. So the suffix is actually known as a tuple, T-U-P-L-E. But when it comes to number, PLE only applies to 3. So I'm suggesting that temple actually means to cut time into 3, which would be the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. Disciple as well, or the disciple. This guy is the plural, disci is the plural of discus, with the PLE applying to 3. The disciples are the ones that disseminate the concept of the creator, preserver, destroyer.
Can I just interject? You used the word mythology, the Greek mythology there, where you use 2 words there. Can you just explain to me when coming to that sort of that criteria you just draw?
Each sign of the zodiac has a ruler, either a planetary ruler or a luminary ruler. So it'd be like the sun or the moon will rule the planet, or will rule the sign, or a planet, so Saturn, Venus, Mars. One of those will have a rulership of a certain sign. And so each one of these signs, because they also correspond to 2 other things, a cardinal sign, a mutable sign, or a fixed sign, but you also have air, water, earth, fire. So each one of those signs is either earth, fire, and water, and cardinal, whatever. And so that also dictates the energies that you get or allegedly get from those things. So people who are cardinal signs, which would be Libra, Aries, Capricorn and Cancer, those signs, those people tend to be sort of good at leading and stuff like that, but not so good at following things through. Whereas the mutable signs are people who are really good at adaptability and things like that, and the fixed signs would be, you're dogged people. It's just like, I'm not budging. So they tend to be those kind of signs as well. So there's those aspects to it, but really the rulership, it comes down to a planet. And those also dictate the energies coming out from the planet.
Can I just ask something, Pete?
Yeah.
Is the value of this that it's symbolic coded language used by people in power? Is that the whole essence of the interest in this?
The interest in this is to try and see the bigger picture and eventually the motive behind the system. So I'm not convinced that the system runs just on greed and power. There's certain anomalous things that are going on, like poisoning the planet, poisoning our air and all those kind of things, groundwater with fracking. They make business sense, but they don't actually make human living on the planet sense. So unless these people have got a way off of the planet, which there's possibilities of that, I've heard that there's secret space programs and stuff going on. Military stuff is like thousands of years ahead of what we're supposed to do. There's whistleblowers who've come out and spoken about this. I can't verify that, so I'm looking at what's happening in the real world, the effects of what is going on, and what makes the most sense. Because it's easy to go, oh well, aliens did this and aliens did that, but it's kind of like shirking responsibility, I think, to actually delve into what is actually happening. Because if the entire system is set up in this manner, then you need to know why it's set up in this manner. Because when it comes around this, all the destroyer signs sit on the fixed signs. Fixed signs in the zodiac. That's Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. And that forms a cross in the sky. So this is a cross like that. And if we think of how did I draw this on there? Right, very briefly, we've got the solar system. Something like that. We've got the Kuiper belt in there. And we've got, if we're looking at it head on, we'll have Taurus there, we'll have Leo there, we'll have Scorpio there, and we'll have Aquarius here. And I'll try to get it quite close to where we actually are in Pisces. So there are meteor storms or streams. You've got the Torrid belt that comes round like this. And you've also got the Leonids and the Aquarids. The theory is, as we move round with the sun, each 6,000 year period, we cross these highways. It's pretty definite that the thing that wiped out the dinosaurs came from this torrid stream. So also, because these signs are fixed, when something's fixed, it's in place. And to have the destroyer in a fixed place just tend to kind of reinforce that, right, do we have this 6,000 year period where we go through something?
Right.
Therefore, this system is set up possibly to make sure there's always a population of humans left. They might set up the system to be fight against dog eat dog, to create the strongest, the cleverest, the best people to survive any kind of cataclysm that comes up. In that sense, it would be viewed by these people as they're totally benevolent. Because they're thinking of, we're trying to save the species. We haven't got, it's down to you as an individual to pull yourself up. If you can't do that and you want to just sit here in Disneyland and just watch telly and do that, then, it's up to you. I mean, do what you like.
Could it also be in the reverse polarity that you said the cleverest and most sort of intelligent might survive whatever disaster? Can it be the other way around, that they destroy themselves and the inexperienced one is actually the one that survived?
Well, this is another aspect that could be doing it, because we do seem to get bombed or smashed back to the Stone Age each time. But then after these events, you have to just look into ancient culture, into their stories and their histories. There's always these people coming and introducing. Someone comes from across the sea, or they come from space, or they come in and they help rebuild. They bring back metalworking and agriculture and these things, and these are fed back in.
So this relates back to the creation of the pyramids and what we started talking about a few weeks ago, that you've got these structures all around the earth that clearly predate 11,500 years ago, that demonstrate very sophisticated technology.
Yeah.
Using this sort of knowledge. And so I think it's not just trying to understand whether the powers that be use this framework to manipulate, but also to give us to sort of start us on a path of learning much more about where we came from, how we got here, and all the rest of it. Now, whether in the overall scheme of things it's irrelevant because we're going to be wiped out and there's going to be a new birth is a bigger question. But there are many aspects to this, not just trying to interpret how they're using it with the coronation coach and such. I mean, there are so many levels.
Yeah, but they're just the little things that I've picked up on as I've been studying, and I've noticed. I thought, well, that's interesting. Let's have a look at that. But the reason I think this is important is because this is how I think this is the kind of the time and motion study of how it goes, of what we are subject to. And so all of our politics and all of our things are just used to fit in the time to get us to the next point.